Welcome to The Gap, where it's our mission to bridge the gap between training and on-field performance.
I'm Brett Hart, owner of Hitman Performance.
And I'm Dan Labadia, the owner of Jack Javelin.
Hope you guys enjoy the show.
All right, everybody, welcome to this episode of The Gap. Today we have a very special guest, Evan Blum, a.k.a. The Juice Factory. I got his hat on. Probably going to wear it backwards most of the pod, but I just wanted to make sure you guys could see the logo before we started. Evan, thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, so today we're going to be talking a little bit about strength and conditioning, baseball, Evan's college and pro career, but a big thing that we're going to be focusing on is the philosophy side of things. That's something that is Evan's strength, and he's been posting a little bit about it on his page, The Juice Factory, and just has a really humble way of going about his social media presence and just trying to document his journey there, and just being really vulnerable in some of the struggles that he's seen with posting and then taking a break from posting and then going to be a professional athlete and then coming back from it and so on and so forth. So I'm going to let Evan take it away, but Evan, before you get into that stuff, tell us a little bit about how you came up with the name Juice Factory and where that comes from.
Well, thank you for that introduction. That meant a lot. So Juice Factory itself, back when COVID hit, me and my buddies built a garage gym back home, and we just kind of gave it the name, the Juice Factory, because it was it was kind of funny. We'd be like, oh, we're going to get juiced up today, just throwing around weights. There was nothing going on. I mean, we weren't in school. We were just kind of doing our thing. And so when I finished college, I was kind of like, okay, I didn't have the best season my last year at Georgetown, but I knew I wanted to still play. And so then I decided I'm going to create this Juice Factory Instagram account to kind of track and log my journey into getting into pro ball. And, whether it's from hitting routines, workout routines, whatever it may be, I was kind of just like, we've talked a little bit about it, but just like authentically logging and vlogging that journey into pro ball. And that's where it started, probably about 3 or so years ago.
So how long in between the time you finished college into the time you were able to sign with a pro team? And that was an independent league, correct?
Yeah. So I actually had a pretty unique journey when I finished college. So right out of my last season at Georgetown, I had signed a contract to go play in the MLB draft league. And so it was a new league where it was kind of split up into two halves. The first half of the summer was, the top college prospects kind of preparing for the draft. And then after the draft, the guys that kind of fell through the cracks or that were still around would play this kind of 50-game schedule of a pro league. And so this was the summer of 22, and I signed this contract. I'm super excited. I'm training all summer. And then the day before the season started, the manager just calls me up and was like, hey, dude, you did nothing wrong, but we got too many guys. Sorry. And so, that was my first kind of rude awakening. They're like, oh, this ain't a kid's game anymore. Like, there's a business side to this, and it do not care about your feelings at all. And so that was, a midsummer, end of the summer. And so at that point, it was too late to kind of find another team. And so that summer was chalked. So then I went down to Florida to kind of train, work a little bit, kind of, just find my way, and ultimately signed a contract to go play in the Pecos League that following summer in 2023, which is low-level indie ball. Like, we were out there. I was out in Marysville, California. That was, we're driving ourselves to the games. Like, that is the purest baseball I've ever played. Like, if you're out there, you love the game, and that is why you're doing it. But that's where I got my start in indie ball. And so, I mean, just to kind of brush up on that, like, since then I've played in Utah, Colorado, Montana, West Virginia. I've kind of been all over the country playing in different leagues, and it's been a roller coaster ride, but I wouldn't change a thing. It's been absolutely incredible.
We talk a lot about preparation, and we will touch on the mental side of it because I played baseball growing up, and everyone says baseball is a mental game for sure. You fail 70% of the time and you'd be in the Hall of Fame. But let's first touch on the physical preparation. I've seen your workout clips, Summers Method, training there. Talk a little bit about that journey on how you could level up yourself physically in order to just prepare yourself for what seems to be a really hectic type of scenario you were in.
Hectic is a good way to put it, for sure. And to be completely honest, I think I've always kind of been into training and just kind of, figuring out how to become the best version of myself. and, kind of gone through all the typical like phases everyone does, like their meathead bodybuilder block, where I was just trying to get big and strong, and then realized I put on all this weight and strength and wasn't hitting the ball further or throwing the ball harder. And I think when I started the Juice Factory account, that was kind of big when like the social media, like gym influencers was a thing. So a lot of my stuff was really kind of seeing stuff on there and then trying it out and seeing how that would like, relate to my own training, which, are pros and cons. Some stuff works, some doesn't. Um, I think one thing I've really learned, obviously training at Summers, and he really taught me everything I know, or at least the foundation of everything I know in terms of just, you know, kind of how to put a program together, like how to go through, some sort of system, like warming up at the beginning, doing your power work before the strength block, and just kind of going through that. And then through my own trials and kind of learning about myself, realize that, just getting big and strong is not how you're actually going to get better at sports. Like you have to be able to move and stay healthy for a long time. And then when that season starts wearing on, like, and you're wearing down, like, can you still move? And I found that, yeah, there's definitely a component of like lifting heavy weights and you absolutely need that. But there's also, in my opinion, in my own personal experience, like your ability to move and hold deep positions and kind of just get in and out of those unique spots, like that is what it's all about. And I'd say, I'm going on a little tangent here, but like now that I'm thinking about it, your Instagram page, both of you guys, and then Austin Yoakum was a big kind of inspiration, influence on me, especially when I was getting into it and just how he goes about finding different ways to move, finding different ways to challenge the body and exposing yourself to different like stimuli that way. And I found that's kind of been my avenue.
Evan, you worked with Dak at one point, correct?
I did, yes.
Talk a little bit about that, because I remember, just for those of you guys who don't know, I actually went down and trained with Evan 2 years ago with Mike Stein, who we're actually having on in 2 hours from now.
Yeah.
And so that's actually ironic. I didn't even put that together until I just started saying it. But so me and Mike Stein went to go train with you 2 years ago in Florida, and we talked about like the sprinting and how when we go sprint, it's not the full like A skip, B skip dynamic warm up, but if you're going to go sprint, your first couple of sprints will just be your warm up and then you just sprint faster. So talk a little bit about that, because that's actually been a pretty common theme with some of the guests that we've been having on, is like the ability to warm up, the CNS's ability and contributing factors into your ability to warm up. So talk a little bit about that and your experience working with Dak as well.
So I'm actually really happy you brought that up. I had worked with Dak right before I think you guys had come down. I had torn my meniscus. I had to get it kind of shaved out because I was just, a little overweight, couldn't bend my knee, and it was just kind of a nightmare. And I'll never forget, we first were getting into training, and the really cool thing about working with Dak was, yeah, we were rehabbing my knee, but we were working on the whole system. Like it was a global approach. And I'll never forget, one of the first days I asked him, like, should I warm up like before we work out? You just post sorry, my roommate's dog. You just post like the workout in here and there's no warm up. And he's like, well, if you want to do a dynamic, you can, but ideally you should get to the point where you can kind of just, roll out of bed, roll into your workout. And like the first exercise, you kind of do a warm up set or two and like to kind of get you going. But like you're at the point where you have the physical health, stamina, ability to go out there and just do it. Because I mean, when you do think about it, like in the hunter-gatherer area, I know this is an extreme example, but like nobody was warming up if they got chased by a lion or something. Like you should, in theory, be able to go out there and just turn it on. And like that is kind of what his approach was to training is you should be at the point where it's, yeah, do a warm-up set of bench, do a warm-up sprint or whatever it may be, but you should be able to get out there because you've put in the work to prepare your body to kind of just roll into it. And I do, I for a while kind of embodied that approach just because I was like, okay, it saves time, like this is good. And then over the last year or so, after having gone through some injuries, like I now kind of see it as if I have the time to get a nice dynamic in, to do a lot of movement preps, like really prepare my body, I'm going to do it. But I also know that, if I'm short on time and like I got to get stuff done, like I don't need an hour-long warm-up to get going.
Brett, what's the quote of the week?
Cheetah don't stretch.
That's
true.
Cheetah don't
It's
stretch.
true.
You were a catcher, correct?
Yeah.
All right. So I was a catcher as well. toughest position on the field. You have to be in it the entire time. And I think you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that is the position that loves the weight room the most. I think that is a position that you feel like you need to work harder than everyone else just because of how much stress you're putting yourself onto. And with your knee injury, I've seen your Instagram or your knee protocol. Talk about how you went through that, what you're posting, and then you can even allude to the mental side of things as well with getting an injury and having that pressure you're putting on yourself with being what seems to be a high achiever, high performer. Being a catcher doesn't help, all right, because catchers have to see the field and be responsible for the other 8 guys on the team. And then go through the physical and mental side of rehabbing that injury.
So that one was actually like a really unique injury. So what had happened was basically I had just my cleat got stuck on a throwdown and just like torqued my knee, and so I tore my meniscus that way. But I was out in low level indie ball in Marysville, California, so I didn't have a trainer. I went to just like kind of a random PT office and was like, "Hey, like, can you tell me I'm good?" And they were like, "Yeah, like it's really swollen, but just don't catch the last week and you can play." So I went, played the last 10 games, like actually did pretty well, salvaged my season, but then went home and went to see my doctor. And I mean, they looked at me like, dude, what did you just do? Thankfully, I didn't tear my ACL, but ultimately had it shaved out. And that's when I started to work with Dak. And so I kind of did like a 2 month quote unquote rehab protocol with Dak, and it was great. Like I got back to being healthy again. And then this is kind of where I messed up, is that I was like, okay, I'm back to baseline. I'm healthy again. So then I stopped working with him and kind of took it upon myself to, go back to programming for myself. And, I like to think of myself as a smart guy, experiment, but like I'm not a doctor. Like I don't actually know how to fix these types of things. And so I'd say I get quote unquote cleared from that injury. And then within a week, like I'm hitting, throwing, catching, like doing all this stuff. And like my other knee literally exploded. Didn't end up getting surgery on that, but I could barely walk, couldn't squat down. And it took me like another week or two to go to the PT at our gym and say, hey, like I need some help. So that was kind of my first, I guess, in terms of philosophy, like my first insight into how I operate and how, as you said, like hi, Chu, we don't like to ask for help and also don't like to admit when we mess up. And I had messed up and needed help. So I went, got help from our PT, and it was kind of, a tough spot because it was the off season was heating up. I was kind of the facilities bullpen catcher. So I'm catching, 8 to 10 major leaguers every day, playing catch with everyone, trying to rehab a knee. And so it was really just I was playing defense against my own body, to be completely honest. And, I grinded it out. It was a lot of like, we had to stop loading my knee. It was a lot of just movement, like being able to sit in a squat again. And to be completely honest, it took that whole off season. So that was 23 into 24. Then I went to Billings to play my first season, made the team out there, and was played a little bit, would kind of play like once or twice a week randomly, but would catch bullpens. And it was, out there, I had to hide it too. Like my knees were destroyed. And I always say it, I'm like, had I had like a larger role in the team, like I would have had to tell the coach I was hurt. Cause like there were some days out there when I'm catching bullpens, I'm on one knee and like I couldn't even stand up. And it was kind of, I got through that season. Things went well, like grinded that out. But then I got home and was like, okay, like I need to kind of get this back on track, like get this together. I need to get my body right. Like I'm a professional athlete and I can't even lift my arm over my head. Like my knees aren't bending. And that was again like a point where I had to ask for help. Um, the season ended, you know, the mental roller coaster is a whole nother story than the physical roller coaster, which we can get into. But it came back to, you know, I needed to ask for help again. I was back down in Florida, and last offseason again, like I was catching bullpens, doing my thing. But I think, you know, for the first 2 months of the offseason, and my roommate is actually my trainer now. We always joke about it, and it was that I was doing literally like 3x10 dumbbell exercises and like cable workouts for like 2 months to just like rebuild my foundation because I literally could not move. Like I was in so much pain, everything. And like, yeah, I probably went a little bit to the extreme of like being careful and stuff, but I had to rebuild my entire foundation. I had to lose some weight too, because, you know, being heavy ain't going to help your knees, especially squatting down to catch. But it was really like, I had to rebuild every single like foundational block of like my athleticism, you know, depth drops, jumping, running, lifting weights again. And by the end of it, I mean, I was the strongest, most athletic, powerful I've ever been. But it started with I had to admit to myself that like I did this to me. Like I hurt myself by kind of being dumb, which, not many people like to admit, but I'm okay with it. I mean, if you don't admit these things, how are you ever going to learn and grow? Is kind of how I see it. It took me a while to see that and to be able to admit that, but like that's the truth. And, you know, we always want to be able to do things all on our own so we can be like, yeah, I figured it out myself. The truth is, you're going to get to the destination a lot faster when, if you don't know something, you ask someone who knows how to do it and take some help. Um, and yeah, I mean, that was kind of the journey with the knees, the whole knee thing. That was just kind of like a funny joke I like came up with and then just like kind of like let it ride. But now it realistically, I had that knee surgery in August of 23. It took basically a full year and some change to the point where it was like, okay, I'd lost some weight, I'd gotten in shape, and like now I can do like a body weight squat and not be in pain and like actually feel like an athlete again.
Evan, so I actually was a catcher too, but I stopped after middle school. So I'm just curious because I remember when we were younger, we would use those knee saver things. Did those work? Or like, do you guys use them past little league?
You're
Or is
considered
it,
soft if you use
okay?
them.
That's what I was getting at.
Like
It's
it's
like,
not.
is that the
It's not.
equivalent of
Yeah.
like, is that the equivalent of like the barbell pad on your
Yes.
back when you
Yes.
squat?
I would say so. I would say it's the equivalent of that. You're
Okay.
you're frowned upon if you use knee savers.
Yeah, we won't make fun of you, but you will remember that.
That's a great way of putting it.
But it's also in like catching today. I mean, I can't honestly remember last time I saw someone using knee savers, but that's also probably because in the game today, no one really catches in a squat anymore.
No,
Like
it's
you're
all.
down on one
Yeah.
knee, and I mean, I do that. I literally wouldn't be able to catch in a squat anymore. I mean, it's just I wouldn't be able to sit there for the whole game, and I wouldn't be able to get low enough to like actually catch the ball from that position.
Mm.
I mean, the evolution of that position itself has been pretty crazy. And now I don't know if you guys just saw, but they just introduced like the automatic balls and strikes or you can do
Yep.
the challenge system. So
Mhm.
that actually, the league that I was in the last 2 years, the Pioneer League, was kind of this like testing grounds for Major League Baseball. So we had the ABS like challenge system in our league, and it was cool to have. Having said that, I wasn't playing in the major leagues where they're calibrating that every single day. So like you would challenge a ball, it could be at your eyes, and they're like, "Yeah, strike." And you're like, "What? Like what's going on?" But yeah, it's the evolution of the position has been pretty incredible. It's kind of definitely moving more towards just if you got a cannon and can hit. Um, but you do need to be in shape and be able to block the ball and be able to move and like have healthy knees to do that.
You were talking on your Instagram about Nietzsche, right? And philosophy, and this is where I kind of want to go with this now, is because you were talking about doing bullpens, you can't stand up. Your knees are shot. And I think this is a traditional masculinity issue for people that seem themselves to be deemed as masculine is to grit through that pain and to take it and be mentally tough. And catchers are told that all the time. But I believe it's an avoidance tactic, which you were referencing, is that you're avoiding the difficult conversation of telling somebody that you are hurt or that you are not okay to do this. Talk a little bit about that because I really like that post and I resonated with it a lot. Is that I think just us in general, like people that listen to this podcast, people that follow us, people that go through the strength journey, are more likely to deem themselves as mentally tough doing physical stuff. But when it comes to the mental side of things, they completely avoid it and go down that side of just self. It's essentially a self harm strategy to avoid those difficult conversations.
So I'm really glad you brought that up. The this whole like idea with Nietzsche has been really just like on the forefront of my mind, and it's not an exact quote, but it's kind of like the sentiment is that in life, quote unquote, resistance and suffering is like the breeding ground for greatness in terms of you have to go through difficult things to see what you're made of and become that person that can like do it. And by that same token, Nietzsche is very critical of people who don't lean into the fire, don't lean into the tension, and they're just willing to kind of, not face that confrontation, like you just said, where, you know, in this like masculine culture, like, yeah, gritting it out on the physical side makes you look tough, but is it actually being tough, just gritting it out so that you don't have to then go admit that you did something wrong or ask for help? And like you just said, I mean, I'm just smiling thinking about it because it's, you know, anybody can keep their mouth shut and just kind of, take that quote unquote pain. I mean, the real pain is admitting, hey, I need help. I don't know everything. I want to learn, and leaning into that. I mean, one of my new kind of ideas is, yeah, I'm playing the game of baseball, but what I'm really doing is playing the game of life. And what that means is I'm constantly learning, growing, and evolving. And that is what life is. You stop playing the game of life when you stop doing those things. And like that's really the only moment that you're going to lose, is when you stop learning, growing, and evolving. And, I think back to all these different moments that I've had in the last year, two, three, four, whatever it may be, whether it was with baseball, business, girls, whatever it could be. And, there was these moments of quote unquote cringe or embarrassment, or I did this, and I'm looking back and man, like hindsight is 2020. Like you were acting with the best information you had then. And the reality is, if you have made the adjustments, if you've learned from those moments and are acting differently now, like there's no reason to be embarrassed. There's no reason to be like, oh, that was cringe. If anything, I'm really happy I did that because I was able to learn from it and grow and evolve and to become this person. Because it's, life is filled with the most unexpected thing happening literally all of the time. So if we're kind of just like going through the motions thinking, okay, I planned for this, and this to happen, the one thing that you can actually then plan for is this, and this won't happen. And so that's kind of where this whole idea of Nietzsche has been just on the forefront of my mind. And I just can't shake it because it's like, okay, like I almost need to seek out discomfort. I almost need to seek out tension and things that, in me, I feel like I don't want to do, because on the other side of that is something new, is my path to greatness. Because if I avoid those things, what am I going to become? And it's like I said in the video, like, who are you going to become? What is life going to be if you're avoiding those moments, those experiences, those things that, let's be real, God put in your path to teach you a lesson or whatever it may be. If you're avoiding those things, you're avoiding your purpose, and then you're avoiding what you could be. And as Nietzsche says, and now as I say, that is the greatest sin you could commit, is just staying stagnant and mediocre when you know that you could be better.
Evan, are you familiar with Alex Hermosi?
Yeah, 22 minutes.
So-
That's not a bad time. We
So-
usually always we timestamp whenever Dan mentions Hormozy, so we made it quite far into the pod.
So he's a business guy, but he talks a lot about philosophy as well. And so he's kind of actually gotten me into it a decent amount. But one of his frames that he likes to think about is the frame of the veteran. Have you ever heard of it?
I think I have, but please elaborate because I'm not totally sure.
Yeah, so with the frame of the veteran, essentially it's if this were to happen one time, most of the time you would freak out and be really, really upset about it. You'd be bothered by it. But if it happened 1,000 times, you would be like, all right, that's just how it is. And you almost get used to it and you almost expect it. And so you're able to react to it a lot more in a calm manner than you would if it was the first time it happened. So he's essentially like, all right, well, if it happened 1,000 times and I would be fine with it, what's going to prevent me from it happening one time and me being fine with it, and like leaning into that difficulty and just overcoming it? And kind of like how you're talking about with Nietzsche is like, leaning into that discomfort and getting over it essentially by figuring out what is causing you to have that breakdown mentally. So have you ever had like a moment in your life, like recently or not recently, even in the past, where you kind of have this thing that happens over and over and over again, and then you're like, all right, I'm just going to not let this bother me anymore and lean into that difficulty and then overcome it?
Yes. I think the best example of that, and I'll just be real. So this summer, I played on three different teams, and it was a roller coaster ride, to say the least. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it. So last year I was out in Billings. I was there the entire year. I'd kind of play once or twice a week, kind of getting random starts here or there, and was catching bullpens. And I had re-signed this year to go back explicitly not to catch bullpens, basically, to play the game, like actually get to be the dude. And so, I go through the off season. I think I'm growing as a person. I'm putting all this work in, and I'm really just putting all this work in physically to get better. Mentally, I'm kind of just ignoring all that. But so I get out there, and the spring training and the first three games are the happiest I think I've ever been in my entire life. Like, I'm the dude. This is my team. Like, this is the greatest thing ever. And then they start having me catch bullpens again. And I can't believe it. Like, kind of being a baby, literally cannot believe it. I mean, it's the first Friday night home game in Billings, and I have the entire stadium, which, ain't that many people, but a couple thousand people like chanting my name, running from the bullpen to home plate to warm up the pitcher. And I'm just like, what is going on? Like, whereas it should have honestly been a moment where I'm like, this is pretty cool. It's just like so embarrassed, like couldn't believe it. But like, that was me kind of not seeing things necessarily how I should. And so this kind of speaks to a lesson that I might touch on later about, kind of standing up for yourself and not settling for less than your worth, but also, in business and in life, if you're not on if you ain't the president or the CEO, like sometimes you got to put up with some shit to get to where you want to go. And so that was a lesson that I had to learn. But so I found myself catching bullpens again. And then I went into the coach's office and was like, what's going on? Like, what's the deal? And I don't want to say we like got into it, but I was a little emotional and was just like, what the F? And he's like, your performance doesn't matter. And I just took that and was like, I'm done. I'm out of here. And so basically, like, selfishly said, yo, I'm out, asked for my release and left. And I'm like, I'm too good to be catching bullpens again. Like, I should be playing. And so a week goes by, I get a call from another team in the same league. They're like, hey, dude, like, I can't believe like a player like you is a free agent right now. Like, come to Ogden. We ain't gonna, this ain't gonna be the same situation. I can promise you that. And so I go there because there was a couple guys got hurt and they needed a lefty bat. And so I go there. First week is great. I play a different position every night. The stadium is selling out. Week two, catching bullpens. And I like can't believe it. Like, I'm trying to be like, okay, I'm gonna treat this time different. Like, I'm just gonna be a good teammate, put everyone ahead of me. And I do it for a couple days, and then I get a chance to play. I hit a homer, and then I get benched again. And I'm like, yo, this is BS. Like, I can't be putting up with this. And it ain't about me. It's like, I'm like, this isn't about, like, it's a team. Like, it's not, this isn't, boxing or tennis where it's a one person team. Like, this is a team. It ain't about me. It's about the team winning. And I only saw it about myself. And so once again, found myself in a position where I was on a good team. Like, we were winning, but I was catching bullpens and I was bitter. And so I didn't want to be there. And so again, asked for my release because I'm like, you know what? I should be in a better league than this. Like, I'm going to bet on myself and go and find what else is out there. And so this is the second team I've been on in basically a month. This is the second team I've been on where I think I should be playing every day. I think I'm good enough to play every day. And somehow I end up catching bullpens because, let's be real, I was a little emotional and said things that I shouldn't have. And so I end up getting a workout with this team in Chicago. And it's like a higher level indie ball team. Like, I'd be playing with dudes who like have Showtime that have been playing in the major leagues. And they bring me in for a workout, and it was like the greatest experience ever. They're like, yeah, we want to sign you. Like, this is like a real step up in my career. Like, I'm telling all my friends, my family, I'm like, guys, I did it. Like, I got this opportunity. And they're like, just stick around for the weekend. Like, we're going on a road trip. You'll join the team Monday. And that Monday was my birthday, and they ghosted me. And it was just like, yeah, not even sorry, bro. It was just no words, just nothing. And so then I had to drive home middle of the summer when I'm supposed to be, having the best year of my life, playing ball. And now I'm kind of just like looking up at the sky, giving up on life. Like, what does this all mean? Like, I just want to quit. Like, I got nothing. And so, I was at home for like a month. At first I was optimistic. I'm like, something's going to come along. Like, I got this. And as time didn't, lost my confidence in that, in life, in everything, was just kind of like, what's it all mean? Just, stop taking care of myself as I should. And of course, things always happen in the most unexpected time. I get a call the day I was about to move down to Florida because I was like, this season's a wash. And I get a call like, hey, you ready? And it was from a friend who had just taken a pitching coach job in the MLB draft league out in West Virginia. And he's like, dude, we need a catcher. Like, you're going to play. You're going to be the guy. Like, all you got to do is come in and like hit, basically. And I'm like, oh, I can hit. And like, the reality is I didn't touch a ball or bat in a month because I had been like, F this, I'm done. And so, kind of twofold lesson that it's like things always happen at the most unexpected times. So you better stay ready because you ain't getting ready. And so it was basically I went out there. I had some incredible moments, met incredible people. I grew a lot. Like we touched on, there's a very strong sense of faith there, which kind of helped me out, like grew in that. And I became the bullpen catcher again. And so it was like, you know what? Maybe like God is trying to tell me something. The universe is trying to tell me something that it's like, I need to start operating differently and looking at things differently. And like I had a couple games out there where I almost caught a perfect game, like incredible moments, but it was just simply like, wow, I'm in this bullpen again and I need to start operating different. And I started to see it for the first time, like, like I'm kind of here serving these pitchers. Like I'm here helping them get better. And it just so happened that we had the best bullpen in the league. Like I'm catching dudes throwing 100 miles an hour going out there with, 0.1 ERAs. And it was pretty insane. And, fast forward 3 weeks later, and it's like, I'm just running the bullpen basically. Like I'm basically an extra coach. I get to play here or there. It's like, my buddy is on the coaching staff. So it's a unique opportunity. But I'm basically just kind of like the bullpen coach catching bullpens. And we end up winning the championship. And all the guys are like, dude, like, I just want you to know how much it meant to us, like having you here and just having you around in the bullpen. I know this wasn't what you wanted. I know you wanted to play, but we just won a championship and we wouldn't have done it without you. And like to speak to, are there patterns that I was getting in? It was, man, I just turned 26 and I'm still getting to play this game. Like I still get paid to play baseball. Like I've played more baseball than 99.9% of people will. I've lived more this summer with the highs and lows than 99.9% of people. And I was like, maybe I should start looking at it like that and start being grateful for the experiences I've had and the people I've met along the way and start seeing like the beauty in that versus, oh, my batting average is low, so then I'm a piece of shit as a person. And I know you guys have definitely felt things like that in like your industry where it's like we're such high achievers that even when you put in all the work and you think you deserved it and earned it, it doesn't always go your way, but that doesn't mean you're a lesser person. But that's kind of where I was at for so long is that, oh, I'm a bullpen catcher. Like I am worth less as a human because of this. And it finally hit me after some low moments, man. Like it's hard to put in words. And everyone, it's relative for everyone, but just like, I'd given up. Like I was just like, there's nothing out there for me. Like I don't know what I'm gonna do. And, you know, I get called back out to play for the last couple of weeks. Cause I was ready to quit, man. And I had buddies telling me, they're like, don't quit. Like, go out there, see, like, baseball players play baseball. Like, go find your love for the game. And like, that on paper was the worst 3 week stretch I've literally had in my entire life. Having said that, it was also probably the best 3 weeks of my entire life ever because of the lessons I learned, like the things I admitted to myself, like the growth that was made. And it had only come through repeating that pattern over and over and over again of being ungrateful, thinking I'm too good for this, and finally just saying, you know what? Maybe I'm not. Maybe I have to accept where I'm at in my life right now, be grateful for that, and then start stacking and building on top of that.
Yeah.
I just want to say, dude, that story, like, I got a little, like, I don't, emotional might be the right word because what you were saying, wanting to be the guy, working your ass off, getting there, then not getting that opportunity. Dude, that was my high school career to a T, which I've talked about a lot, and I'm not going to get into it now, but it took me years to figure that out. Like, you are going through that cycle and you want to be that guy, and it took me until my junior year of college or even my senior year where I had this mentor of mine, Coach Adam Fight, which we definitely have to have him on the podcast because his lessons keep coming up in these conversations that we have with other people, is the law of inverse effort. So the harder you try to get something, the more you want something, the less likely that is to happen, and the more likely the opposite is going to happen. And so for you saying you wanted to be the guy and wanted to play and wanted to start and be that centerpiece behind the plate and to lead the team and to not get it, like that is textbook my story. And not at your level, like your level is definitely higher. I didn't make it that far. I quit way before that. But but then me coming to that difficult conversation with the coach, leaving baseball, led me down to the coaching path, and then finding that, and then meeting Dan, having the podcast, leaving my old job to do this full time. So you don't know what those lessons will end up being down the road. But when you're in them, dude, you get lost. You get in dark, deep places, and it's just awesome to hear like a story that like really hits home to me. So I just want to let you know like it was powerful for me to hear.
I appreciate that. And like that's why, I finally am getting over that hump of like, this is like what I'm supposed to do and sharing this. Like this is, I was talking about it with my buddy and those posts I was making. It was I wanted to start sharing the insights and thoughts that I was having that helped me get through that time versus like the thoughts and insights I'm having now when it's like, and don't get me wrong, there's going to be more ups and downs, but like I made it through that battle. And now it's like I'm comfortable again. Like, I need to be seeking the discomfort, but it's like, I'm not in that hellish fire like I was anymore. And so it's like, okay, let me go back to think about like what were the patterns and thoughts and ideas that I was just running through over and over to get me through. And like it was really it's a couple of things that we've talked about and we can touch on them more, but there was definitely some central themes that I just kept replaying. I'm like, why do these things keep happening? And like if anything, depending on where we want to go, like I just don't believe in coincidences anymore, man. Like especially with how you were just talking about your story, like every single thing happens for a reason. Whether we can see it in the moment right now or not, kind of besides the point, but like everything is actually like happening for you. In the moment we think it's happening to us, like, oh, why did this happen to us? But it's actually happening for us. And whether you see it now, tomorrow, a year from now, whatever it may be, like this is like we talked about, like, this is shaping you into who you're supposed to be. Like everyone has and has been given their unique skills, abilities, passions, dreams for a reason. Like none of us are the same person for a reason. And that is something that, at least to me, I'm like, need to explore, need to continue to pursue. Like, what are those things that like make you tick? And what are those things out there that you do when you are fully present? Like the BS of the world is not in your mind. Like you are actually in the flow state. And like those unique individualistic things for people, like that's what you need to lean into. That's what you need to share. And like I see it like even in this conversation, like I get so passionate like talking about these kind of very like niche specific things, but like that is maybe what I'm supposed to do. Maybe I'm supposed to be talking about these things. And, like we said with posting on Instagram, like, man, let me put my pride and ego aside and just like, if I can just help one person out there with sharing my story of just saying, hey, this is what happened to me, like, it can all be okay. Like, you can get through it too. I mean, that's what it's all about. Like, that is literally what it is all about.
Yeah, I mean, I think that what you're saying too about going through those experiences and making that shape you to who you're supposed to be. Like, I just look back at the time I was 20 years old and I had Tommy John surgery and I missed my first season throwing. And then the next year, when I was supposed to come back and be the guy on the team, our season got canceled because of COVID. And so then I went for basically 3 years without competing. So I had the surgery. I was done competing in 2018, missed 2019, missed 2020, came back in 2021. So it was 3 years without basically in between competitions. And that taught me a ton about the javelin technique and the strength and conditioning side of things. And also just the delayed gratification and like how actually the second year my season got canceled, like it didn't even bother me because I was like, oh, I'm already used to this. Like I already like missed last year. It's like, whatever, this is old news at this point. But then that's when I started getting into the coaching side of things. And I started coaching an athlete who was far better than me. And that's when I realized too, like early on, like, hey, maybe I started having those thoughts, like maybe it isn't for me to be the guy. Maybe it is to lead and coach. And it's just so true because I see, for those that know my story, like it's never been about me being the best athlete, but it's been about me just being passionate about the javelin, trying to give back to the community, trying to bring awareness to the new style of training that is javelin and just give back in a way that no one's ever given back before. And what's cool too is when you talk about like our age and stuff, it's like there's no better person to do what we're doing than us, like in starting it at a younger age. And because a lot of times when people go through their full career, then they start giving back. But by the time they start giving back, a lot of times they're, 40, they're already into their, later, older years. So they might have 15, 20 years to really make an impact and push the sport forward. But if us at 25, 26 are able to start that process a lot earlier and use our platforms to bring awareness to that, now we have 40, 50 years in the game of being able to contribute to that cause.
I completely agree. And I also think like in conjunction with that, like it's ironic because I feel like people look at us and or look at people our age and are like, well, what do you know? And it's like, well, I know what I know, and I think I can relate to those people who are also in my position. And it's like, if we aren't sharing our experiences, how is anyone, else out there that might be going through these types of things? Like, how are they gonna, find their way, or at least how are they gonna find their way faster? And I just think it's such a blessing because even like what you just said, I mean, when you realize you're like, maybe it's I'm not meant to be the dude, I'm meant to lead the dude, and like stuff like that. And then you see how you start doing that, and then you start creating momentum, then you start building up your following, you start creating these programs, and things start falling into place. Maybe it's because you really started to get in alignment with what you're supposed to do, and then things start speeding up and they start coming together because you are going down the path that you were meant to go down.
Yeah, I mean, things have definitely been speeding up around here for sure. Brett can definitely attest to that and just see like when you commit all your time and energy to your calling, the compounding effect is very real.
I mean, I wanted to coach at 16, and I did, but I knew that was like my true calling. And before the podcast, I was telling you about the stress is an iron beam, and when you have two decisions on either end and you can't decide, it's going to bend or eventually snap the beam, and that's where you get that anxiousness, you get the depressive episodes, you get the self-doubt and all of that. And for me to know what I wanted to do at 16, but it took me 4 or 5 years to actually go out and do it. And then it took me another 4 years to go do it myself and not work for somebody else. Like that is what I see a lot of people getting stuck in. And us being 25, 26, that is our advantage. We have a lot longer path, like what Dan was saying. We have a lot longer time to make an impact. And I think that's when you're saying the people that are saying like, oh, what do you know? I think those are the people that regret not starting sooner. I think those are the people that see us and yeah, we might get shit wrong. I mean, there's stuff I say all the time that I'm not afraid to start over or to learn new things or to figure out like, damn, I was way off the mark 3 years ago, but I'm not afraid to put that out there. And I remember talking to Dan about like the crab in the bucket mentality, especially in the javelin world, that he was saying that javelin isn't going to be a big thing because it's about the love of the game. It's not about the reach. Like he's running for the javelin president of the United States right now, like trying to get it in all the states. But then even had his comment saying like, it's for the love of the game. It's not for this. And then that's what gets people stuck. And that the people older than us that get stuck in that just see people trying to make a change and they don't like it because I think they see themselves in that journey.
Yeah, and going off the crab in the bucket mentality, like obviously it's still early. Like I started the whole movement like 5 days ago, but the biggest supporters have been shot put and discus coaches. And it's like the javelin coaches who are like my quote unquote like business competitors, or they are, the ones that I compete against when it comes to the meet day. I haven't heard anything from them. And it's like,
Is so telling, but of course, and it kind of just makes me think of this quote that my buddy always tells me. It's people don't actually care about being right. They just want you to think that they're right. And so whether or not, they actually know how to be the best javelin thrower or whatever it may be, they just want other people to think they're right. So, if they think you're right, that might mean they can't think that they're right. So it's, we see this in the social media world. Like it's just everybody tears each other down, bro. Like no one's actually building each other up. And that's why it's so cool to see, but also makes sense that the people like, kind of in your like field sport area or the track and field sport area, like the ones kind of next to, but not within your specific niche are the ones that are supporting you. Because of course they are. Because, you know, the only people that try to tear you down are the ones that are either embarrassed by what you're doing or envious or jealous of what you're doing. Like nobody who actually wants to see you succeed is going to tear you down. And like that's what I'm realizing. Like that's also, and this is another one, like, lessons I wanted to talk about is like you're going to know who the real ones are in your life because they're going to love you for who you are and not what you do. Like you could, and I'm not going to say you could go, kill a baby and they'd still love you, but like you could really go do anything. You could go fail as a javelin coach, or I could go fail as a baseball player, and they're still going to be there. They're still going to love me. And those are the real ones in my life. And I think we pay too much mind and too much energy to the not real ones. But I mean, it makes sense because, you know, it's human nature to want what you can't have. But it's also, that is a backwards way of looking at it because why would you want the things you can't have when you have things right in front of you that are beautiful and amazing, that are literally gifts from the world that you should be like, wow, I'm so lucky to have this. I literally don't need anything else. And
That reminds me of the I versus me and the ego versus the soul, is that you try to explain yourself to somebody, like who they ask who you are, like, oh, I'm a strength coach, I'm a javelin coach, I'm a bodybuilder, I'm a powerlifter, I'm a baseball player. Like, that's not who you are. Like, at your core, like, that's not your spirit. That's not what you were meant to do in this world. It's just something that you do. And that is what social media gets highlighted. Like, your ego gets highlighted. People get a lot of money and monetize and make successful businesses based on what they can do and who they perceive themselves to be. And I just love that Naval quote too, of him talking about the difference between being wise and acting wise. And you can kind of tell, like, the people that can explain their point to a degree of being able to just with a deeper understanding, and it's not surface level, it's not talking about fancy words or pulling from the book, and it's not just total memorization of a topic, it's just a deeper understanding of it so you can explain it to somebody else. And that is what I think I struggled with social media, and I know you talked about that as well. So you can go into a little bit about your social media struggles, because I think a lot of people would relate to it.
so I think this kind of speaks to that exact line that I was just saying of where we don't actually care about being right. We just want people to think I'm right. And so like how I'd kind of relate that to my own social media journey is that, when I started my Juice Factory account, it was really authentic. Like it was me being me, putting myself out there, just documenting my journey. And like in the, front of my mind was like, I think this can help other people. And as it kind of got along and I started to get some followers and get some views and things like that, it started to be okay. Now I kind of see this like snowball effect going like, what if I just started making videos that got more views and just made it look like I was a baseball player, like made it look like I was getting after it. And it was this kind of just like tension inside of me that I was like, ooh, this like is not who I am. Like this is kind of fake. Like I just want to be a baseball player and I'm just trying to make it look like I'm a baseball player. And so I mean, you can go back. I mean, I have hundreds of posts on there. I mean, I've had it for a couple years, but there's like a long hiatus in the middle of it because I was like, you know what? I need to get away from this whole like, posting my highlight reel of like, I'm this, really cool baseball player and just go do it. Just go be it and live it. And when I started to do that, shit started to take off. Like as a baseball player, I mean, there was a lot of mental work to do, but even that, like getting away from it, like I started to take baby steps there. And it was, obviously now I circled back here in the last couple of days, starting to post a little bit again with some of these videos, but it was, I had to get away from trying to make myself look a certain way, even if it was to try to fool me. Like, yeah, I was trying to fool the world. In a way, it was probably to try and make me feel like I was that professional baseball player. Like, yeah, I was, but I was like, I need to go just get better at the thing itself instead of just trying to make it look like I'm good at this thing. And so then kind of fast forward to last week when I was just like looking around, like, what does it all mean? I've been, writing out pages upon pages of just like my own personal philosophy, what I believe in. And I'm like, you know what? Why don't I just share some of this? Like I kind of had this crazy quote unquote roller coaster ride of a summer, the highest highs and the lowest lows. Like, why don't I just kind of share some of these ideas that I was having that helped me get through this? Because it's going to resonate with someone. Like I know it will, whether they say it to me or not, I don't know, but I know it will. And, you know, I got some good feedback on it. I had a couple comments, like obviously we're here after a couple days, but even I had a buddy that hit me up right after it and was like, man, like I was really down. Like those were just found me at the exact right time. And then, he asked me like, can I do one with you? I'm like, well, you might need to have some insight or wisdom, brother. But you know, it's cool to see how you can have that impact on people. And I finally got away from, I'm not trying to make myself look a certain way. Like, I don't really care. Like, I know who I am. I know, like, I think these topics are cool. These have been on my mind and are important to me. And like, just on top of that, I'm like, I know this would help people. And so that was kind of where it was like, I just kind of got to get over myself. And like, I don't even know what the fear was. It was just a hesitancy to act, which was probably the fear was probably more of taking action than, and as we've been talking about, leaning into the tension and the discomfort. And that was kind of where it was because the idea hit me that I was like, like I have a good story I could share here. The Nietzsche one and then the Black Dots are, I'm like, these are like really good ones. I know I could share it, but I don't want to set the camera up and do it. And it was at that moment I was like, dude, like listen to what you're saying right now. Like just do it. Like what do you have to lose? Like who cares? And now it's a beautiful thing. And it's, I haven't been posting them every day because I don't want to force it, but I also have some like ideas and topics that I do want to like start talking about and like putting out there. And I think that is like a beautiful thing. I mean, I had someone tell me last year, because again, I used to post a ton and they were telling me, they're like, oh yeah, like I don't see you posting that much anymore. I'm like, I don't have anything to say really. And they're like, well, when you have something meaningful to post, like if you have something that you think is like beautiful, amazing, and interesting, like post it and do it. And like I thought about that and it stuck with me for a while. And it was finally like, okay, you know what? You're right. Like let me just start sharing some of these things. And you know, the effect it's already had has been incredible.
Yeah, and that's something that I actually was talking about with Brett last week was how whenever you have any of that like anxiety or nervous feeling inside of you, from the moment you get that feeling till the moment you do something about it, how long you're going to be anxious about it. Right? So if you get that nervous feeling and you get anxious about making a video or going to have a hard conversation with someone, if you get that nervous feeling and then you have the conversation or you post the video 30 minutes later, you'll be nervous and anxious for 30 minutes. But if you let that conversation or making that first video delay 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, a week, a month, then you're going to be anxious and nervous about it for 2 days, 3 days, a week, or a month. And so a lot of times it's leaning into that difficulty, like you were talking about before, and just getting over that hump and kind of embracing it head on, and you'll get over it.
Well, because especially in those times too, when it's like you feel that tension inside of you, you're like, oh, I kind of know I should do this. It's like, yeah, the anxiety is going to build of the uncomfortable conversation, but then that anxiety is also going to build of like, oh, I know I should be doing this, and I'm actively not. I'm actively because inaction is also action. It's the action of not doing anything. And so when you know you should do something, when you are actively not doing it, that is just the compounding effect of it. It makes that anxiety and stress and like the thoughts about yourself even worse. Because it's, as we said, you have to lean into the fire. I mean, like when you feel that tension in you of like you don't want to do something, like you just said, like that really is probably the greatest sign that it's something you should do. Obviously, if it's the tension, you're like, okay, should I go rob a bank? Like, yeah, maybe that's my moral compass saying no. But like, if it's a tension, should I go have this uncomfortable conversation or go ask for help with this person that I'm nervous to talk to? Like, yeah, probably should go do that because like you're gonna feel a lot better about yourself. You're gonna make progress in whatever you're needing to make progress in, and you're gonna learn. You're gonna grow from it. Like you're gonna add more tools to your toolbox, even if it's just being able to have an uncomfortable conversation.
I think I love the quote the most from Layla Hormozy. All right, so this is my Hormozy quote, but she definitely didn't come up with this, but it's just where I heard it from. Is talking about fear, and then fear is a body of water that's a mile wide but an inch deep, and it always brings me back to there's just a funny viral video of a kid getting to the edge of the diving board, and he's about 2 feet off the water. Like all he needs to do is just jump in, but he's just shaking in fear of right at the edge of the diving board. Like, dude, you're so close. Like sometimes you almost I want to go into the screen and just push him because I realize like it's not that bad. And then just reflecting and having these conversations with you and then the other guests that we had on, like how many times in my life have I been that kid on the edge of the diving board? Just pool's right there. I know I'm not going to get hurt, and you're shaking and you're nervous, you're anxious. And then the inaction that you were saying, it compounds and it just builds and builds. And being able to take that leap of faith, being able to fully trust yourself and to have that self belief is a skill that comes from really shitty times. And I don't think you can just read a bunch of books and listen to a lot of podcasts and think you're going to be the person you want to be. I mean, you guys are in your faith. God wants to, if you want to be more honest, God's going to give you more opportunities to express that honesty. If you want to be perceived to be a brave person, God's going to give you opportunities to express that bravery. And I think everything that you're saying is all that leading up to what I think is maybe your true calling. Maybe it's not baseball. Maybe it's not professional baseball. Maybe you could be a higher up wellness and just speak on camera and impact people like that. And I think about stuff like that all the time. And I don't post about it a lot or talk about it a lot, but I know for certain a lot of the stuff that you're saying just resonates with me a lot.
Yeah, and I mean, I appreciate you saying that. And to be completely, I've like had a lot of those same thoughts too, because I have this like weird relationship towards social media where I'm like, yo, I hate this, except I, have a fairly organic following and have like things to say that people relate with. And it's like, okay, maybe I have this crazy tension in me because this is really what I'm supposed to be doing. And baseball was just something I loved to do, something I was good at, but because I loved it so much. And, things don't love you back. Like it's just how it is. Like that was maybe my avenue of learning these lessons and getting to this point. Like if that's what it was, like, man, I had some incredible times. And then even in those lows, like you can only experience that extreme low in life if you also have the potential to like experience the equal and opposite high. So like, yeah, when you dare and dream big, you are risking a lot and you set yourself up to be vulnerable and to have a lot of pain and, quote unquote suffering if it doesn't work out. But you also have the potential for such extreme highs. And so it's, if you're willing to live on both ends of the spectrum, because that's, what life is experiencing those highs and lows. Like, yeah, if you want to hide away from like those feelings and kind of just stay in the middle and not experience anything, like that's your prerogative, but you might not have very meaningful experiences and relationships. And let's be real, one day we're all going to leave this place and we don't take anything with us. It was, you did some cool stuff, met some cool people along the way, and that's really all it is. And so that's kind of been, a newfound guiding principle in a way that it's, obviously we got to survive, we got to do things, we got to take care of the people we love, but it's also like, man, at the end of the day, like I just want to have cool experiences and be around people that I care about and can connect to, honestly.
Dan and I talk a lot about just that middle ground. I was joking with Dr. Heenan too when I first saw him about how I feel like my life is the Charlie Francis high-low model. Is that like my low days are really low, but my high days are really high. And the middle ground is just so like it would be nice to be a 9 to 5er sometimes and to work 9 to 5, get your base salary. You definitely have those moments. All right, don't lie. Of just they're like quick thoughts. You're like, dude, it'd be nice to just be able to know I'm working Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. I get my 2 weeks off vacation. I get my salary every year. I don't have to worry about how much money I'm making in the month. Like you have those thoughts, but then you realize if you go and do that, that's that tension that's going to build up inside you. Or at least for us, I know. I mean, for me personally, is that feeling of comfort would be nice, but I know in that comfort, I would feel like I'm not living up to what it is that I actually want to do.
Absolutely. And I think there is like some nuance to it where there is a level of like you are at a point where you're comfortable and kind of you can go out and have those experiences and meet those people and like do your thing. And obviously, we all got to grind to the point where like we are at that level. And this kind of brings me to an interesting point here that I wanted to touch on. It just hit me. So this past off season, I don't know how I somehow got connected to Marcus Stroman and we became kind of good
That's pretty sick.
friends. It was very unique and incredible opportunity. But so we became good friends last off season. I'd go over to his house or we'd play catch. And like I'd catch his bullpens in the street and stuff like that. And, he's made hundreds of millions of dollars. He has all these different businesses and this and that. And so, take it with a grain of salt. It's easy for people like that to say, hey, man, money ain't going to buy you happiness because it's, he has all the money in the world. And he's like, I promise you, it ain't going to buy you happiness. But that was kind of the context for him. Like, so like, who are you? Like, what do you think of what do you do? And it's so funny because you said earlier, we always think about what we do as I'm a baseball player, this and that. And he told me, he's like, I'm an artist. I'm an artist of life. And that was so striking to me because I'm like, this dude gets paid, $30 million a year to go throw baseballs in a strike zone and do his thing. And he's telling me, he's like, dude, I'm not a baseball player. I'm an artist. Like, I create wine. I have a clothing brand. Like, yeah, I play baseball and stuff like that. But like, dude, my life is, I'm an artist of life. And just like everything I do is just like a stroke of my paintbrush. And it was so compelling the way he said it. And even I found myself in my own life, like trying to look at it through those lenses. And even in just like the simple things like writing in the morning, I'm like, this is a way for me to like let out my creativity, my artistry, like cooking dinner, like cooking meals, like, throwing all the different colors in and like creating things. I'm like, wow, this is who I am. This is who I want to be. Like, yeah, I want to. Nobody plays sports without the goal of like making it to the highest level. Like, yeah, I want to make it to the major leagues, but like, to be completely honest, I want to get to the point where it's like I can see life that way, where it's like, ooh, I'm an artist of life. Like that. When someone asks me what I'm doing, I'm like, I'm an artist because I have all these different creative outlets and different avenues, income streams, whatever it may be, to like fulfill myself. Because it's not like we said, it ain't what you do, it's who you are. Like that's what like makes your value as a person. Like you guys could be the best coaches in the world, I could be the best baseball player in the world, and we could be horrible human beings. Whereas vice versa, you guys could be the worst coaches in the world, I could be the worst baseball player. But if we're great people, that probably counts for more.
Do you know Mike Stud?
Yes.
Do you
I have
know?
I have never met him, but I like know who he is.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Have you listened to Marcus Stroman's feature on his song?
Yes.
Okay. All right, cool. I just wanted to make sure if you hadn't listened to it already. Have you listened to it?
No.
So Mike Stud is a former baseball player at Duke who had Tommy John surgery, and when he was going through his rehab, he became a rapper, and so he's I think from Rhode Island, but he had a song, and then he ended up doing like a remix to the song and had Marcus Stroman on it. I think they were teammates at Duke.
Yeah, they were good for it. Was every time I'd go over there, he would just have on the speaker like Mike Stud radio play.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. So it was like I think that in their song too, they talked about how like Marcus Stroman tore his ACL and then Mike Stud tore his UCL, and then they were teammates, and then they were just like making this song together, and I don't know, it's just a cool story.
It's cool. It's a small world, but it's cool how all that stuff intertwines. And just another one. That's another layer of the artistry. It's like, yeah, he's in music now too. And it's
Yeah.
like that's where, I lived my life so singularly focused because, as like a high achiever, you're like, okay, if I want to make it to the major leagues, if I want to be a professional baseball player, I can only do this. I can only think about this. And if I start, building my life in other aspects, then I'm taken away from this and I'll never make it. And like that, to be completely honest, is so close-minded and just a dumb way to look at things in my perspective, because two things can be true at once. You can be all in, grinding your balls off for your career, whatever it may be. Like for me, say it's as a baseball player, I'm eating healthy, I'm training, I'm doing all that. There's still a lot of time in the day to do other things and like build up my life in business, relationships, like everything. Like, and another, kind of lesson and principle that came to me this summer was like two things can be true at once. Like you can be the hardest worker in the room, and then you can also have like, other ideas and things going for you. And, I think in our industry and world and sports and performance, like dude, we get so caught up and singularly focused and being closed-minded on, okay, I can only do it this way. And if I don't do it this way, it won't work out. And I mean, that's backwards on so many levels. Because if you're, like we said, I can't remember the name of the law exactly, but like the harder you hold on to something and want it to happen, the more likely it is that it won't happen. You know?
The law of inverse effort, by the way.
Law of inverse error. I'm gonna write that one down. Might have to
Really
talk
good.
about that one soon.
Yeah. Next Instagram post.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We probably could have talked for another 2 hours, to be honest.
Yeah, this
So
was awesome.
Yeah,
I'm,
this
I'm
was
so happy we
honestly,
did this.
yeah, this is one of my favorite conversations that we've had so far. I think that just kind of going beyond strength and conditioning and just getting into more of the human and the mental side of things is really, really cool. So Evan, thanks so much for coming on. We definitely got to do this again sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you guys for having me. It was a blast.
Thanks for tuning in.
And if you enjoyed it, please leave a 5-star rating and review and share the show, because the only way that this show grows is if you like it, share it, and tell your friends and family about it.
New episode every Monday.